Okay. Shalom, everyone. Shavua Tov. The topic for our lecture tonight is very important. It's not just curious. It's also, of course, many people will be curious about it, but I think it's more important than interesting, because we're gonna deal with something. I'm gonna show you part of bigger thing about who we are. Many people do not know. Most of the people do not know who they are, and therefore, when you're running your life, when you think that you are something, but you're missing a bigger picture, you could make a terrible mistake, but it's gonna go through all the entire time that we have in this world. So the topic is body and soul, the interaction between body and soul. About the body, everybody knows, more or less. Every little kid, every little baby, the first thing that he's doing when he comes to this world is crying. The crying has two reasons. One, a protest. After 9 months for this place, but the other thing is, and this is something, that there is a damage that happening while the delivery occurred. Why? What is the damage? The baby crying because he or she feel not comfortable temperature-wise. They're hungry. They're thirsty. They feel many physical needs. And of course, immediately we're helping them because they're completely helpless, right? So when we helping them, by the way, we're causing them a psychological damage. How? Because they feel comfortable after they fed, right? After they drink something, after the temperature is adjusted. So there is a process that's going on, not just from day one, but 9 months probably before day one, of searching, who am I? The identity. I'm looking and searching for my identity. And it's not just, when you're a teenager or more mature. It started from the beginning. And this trauma or this experience that you feel uncomfortable physically as a baby, and then it's okay. So it's okay. So you do in your mind, are my physical needs. Then you identify completely with your body, with no way, of course, at this age, to think even about spiritual dimension that you have. And you got used to this. And even if you got to mature age, you mature physically, but now not too many people knows about their spiritual dimension. I think we could say the following. Many people in the world heard about something called soul. But not too many knows what is this exactly. And for sure, how to run it right, how to relate to it. So in this particular session, I want to just show you the sources from the Torah about the neshama, the soul, and the body, and the relationship, the interaction between them. Between them. And I want to show you something amazing about research that was made by non-religious people asking themselves an academic question. There is such a thing like non-physical dimension in the human being. And there are many kind of research that made in this topic. I will relate to one, which will be very interesting one, with comparison to what they have what they find and what we have in our sources compared to this. Okay? This is basically what we're going to do. Okay, let's start from our sources. The first place in the Torah that we should be aware of is in Genesis, in the beginning, when Hashem created the first human being. It's written like this: "Vayitzer Hashem Elokim et ha'adam afar min ha'adama, vayipach be'apav nishmat chayim, vayhi ha'adam lenefesh chaya." When Hashem created man, He formed it from two things: dust from the ground and a soul. Right? So here the Torah, in the beginning, the first description about Adam is a dual. You have two dimensions, the physical and the spiritual, body and soul. Okay, let me assume, I hope I'm right, that you remember chapter 2 and chapter 3 in Genesis? Could we assume so? I mean, I'm talking about the sin, the first sin. Okay, the result of the sin, without going into the details, the result was that, before the result, God warned Adam Rishon, listen, you are allowed to eat from all the trees in the Garden of Eden, but one. It's called Etz Hadat Tov Hara, the tree of knowledge to differentiate between good and evil. Don't eat from this tree. And God warned him, if you will do it, if you will eat from it, you will die. So, according to this, we have to know every person has a free will. So in principle, Adam HaRishon could listen to God and not eat from this tree. If he will not eat from this tree, he will never die. Meaning, death is not something that must be built in the creation. It was created, the option of death was created in the beginning as an option. After Adam HaRishon sinned, he brought himself or put himself in this state that he must die. Because the Torah says, "U'me'etz hadat tov hara lo tochal mimenu, ki biyom acholcha mimenu mot tamut." At the day that you will eat from it, literally, at the day of, I'm translating it literally, at the day that you eat with it, you'll die. But we know that he ate and he didn't die at the same day, right? So explain the Ramban. The Ramban says, "Ki biyom acholcha mimenu mot tamut." If you will eat from this, at the day that you will eat from that, you will become mortal. It doesn't mean that you will die at the same day, but you will become mortal. Again, if you will not eat from this, he will live forever, right? So we have to know that God created us in order to live forever. We did the problem. We made the problem, and therefore there is such a thing called death. But here's the big thing. Death is not, even after the sin, is not the final decision. It's not the final state. Actually, it's a temporary state between, because of the sin, you must go through it, but there is something called Tchiyat HaMetim, the resurrections of the dead, right? You heard about this. It's one of the 13 principles in the Jewish belief, right? So, Tchiyat HaMetim is the state after the body will go back to its origin. It will rebuild in purpose to stay with the soul forever. Okay, this is the general idea in Judaism. It seems, wow, okay, those who believe, fine, but it doesn't seem real according to what we see or according to our concept of reality. The question is that our concept of reality, is it true? Do we know what the reality is? And the answer is no. For sure no. So, for sure no, I'll tell you why for sure. Because researchers in all areas continue to research, right? Meaning that we admit that we do not know. Because if we know everything, we do not have to research to ask any more questions. We know. So we know that we do not know. But the things that we do not know are bigger than the thing, bigger bigger and nothing bigger than what we know. We more do not know than we know. So according to what we know, it seems for us that resurrections of death is impossible, according to what we know. But again, it's limited. The Torah says there is such a thing. Okay, now let's go to another verse in the Tanakh, not in Genesis, not in Sefer Bereshit, but in a book that I know how to say in English, in Hebrew I don't know how to say in English. It's called Koheles. Yes, this thing, yes.
Yes, that one.
Kohelet.
I like what you said better.
Right? There is a book called Sefer Kohelet, one of the 3 books that the wise person ever, Shlomo HaMelech, left for us. In this book, in chapter 12, verse 7, he says the following. He described what happening after the sin and after the decree that everybody should die. What's going to happen? Be aware, before we learn this verse, that life is a combination, and what we call life is when the body and the soul are together. Why it's important to define this? Because in order to understand what death is, you have to understand what life is. Okay? So what is death? A separation between the body and the soul. Now, when such a separation occurred, what's happening? We see the body without the soul in it, right? And we bury the body. We bury the body. What we do not know is what's going to happen, what's happening to the soul. Be aware that even when the soul is inside of the body, we do not see it, right? I can see your souls, I see your bodies. I can see even my soul. But we know that there is such a thing. It's not physical, therefore you could not see it in your flesh eyes, but it's there. So when a person deported, leave this world, what we see is the physical. But when the spiritual was inside the physical, he was alive. He was moving. You could relate to him. But now it seems like nothing. This is it, right? So what we have to know, that the soul is separating the body, and that's what the verse says. וישוב העפר על הארץ כשהיה, the dust will return to the ground as it was, והרוח תשוב אל האלוהים אשר נתנה, and the spirit returned to God who gave it. So here it's written that the spirit, the neshama, the spiritual dimension is not dying, ever. It's just separated from the body and goes back to God. This is not clarified for us what we want to know. What's happening to it, right? Okay, we know. Okay, let's assume that the soul is there. We're there. And many questions that many people will be curious about. Is the time-life experience of this person stayed with the soul? Does the soul remember what happened when it was in the body? That the soul knows what this person left in this world? Children, friends, they interested in them at all? Or they're in totally different dimension? All of those questions are questions mark without answers, right? So one little thing that I think we must mention here. We have to know that the Torah gives us instructions for the life here, for the physical life, when we are here with body. But in the Torah we have 4 levels. Initials Pardes, Pshat, Remez, Drash, Vesod. The simple, the hint, the demand, and the secret. Right? So we have to know that if you divide those four levels of the Pardes, you could divide them to 2. The Nigle and the Nistar. The revealed and the hidden. The entire, and this is the rule, the entire information about the non-physical thing in the creation are mentioning sometimes in the revealed part of the Torah, but there are a lot of details on it in the hidden part of the Torah, in the secret, in the Kabbalah, right? So in this lecture, we will need to relate to things, to information that is in the hidden part, but not just. Let's see more than that. When a person is created, we saw over here how the first man in the world was created. But after Hashem created Chava from the body of Adam, he made the option to multiply without creating new people from dust, right? So how it works, here's the important information about it. It's Gemara in Masechet Kiddushin, Tanu Rabbanan, Shlosha shutafim הם באדם. There are three partners in every human being. HaKadosh Baruch Hu ve'aviv ve'imo. The father and the mother, we know today more than we knew before, that there is a DNA, right? And the DNA, it's a contribution of the father and the mother, and that will make the body of the person. The soul, we do not get from the father or the mother, we get it straight from God. Okay? So there are three partners in every human being. According to this, when the body finishes its job in this world, it goes back to the ground, but the soul goes back to the source who gave it, God. Okay, here there is things that I'm gonna skip because it will take us a long time, more than we could. I mean, there are many interesting things over here, but we have to concentrate on one thing. There is a verse, again, in a book that for sure I do not, Proverbs, okay? Sefer Mishle. Again, one of the books that Shlomo HaMelech wrote for us, and there is a parable. You know, Mishle are, I don't know if that's the meaning of this word, but it's parables, right? What's the meaning? There isn't any meaning for this?
Proverbs. Yeah, Proverbs is a
parables?
Positive description. It would be in English. Verbs are a descriptive word, so it would be
it's more parables, okay? Mm-hmm. So the entire Sefer Mishle are parables. You take things from the world that we have, it's tangible to us, in order to teach us something that be beyond our understanding, right? So here in chapter 20, verse 27, Shlomo HaMelech wants to teach us about the neshama, what the neshama is. So from all the things in the world, he find one, which is a candle. Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The male soul is a candle of God. What is the meaning of this? What is a candle? In a candle, the old-time candle, you have four parts to the candle. A vessel, an oil, or anything else that could be whatever, that could make any kind of fuel. A ptila, which is the wick, and the flame. Four parts. From all four, let's concentrate on the flame. The flame is something very interesting, aside from being romantic. Flame is something that always strive to go up, right? Mm-hmm. Has different kind of colors. And this is the soul. Why? Why from everything, Shlomo HaMelech chose a flame of a candle to represent the soul? Because a flame of the candle is something very interesting from different point of view. Let me see if we could explain this. When Hashem created the world, there are two main elements called Shamayim va'aretz. Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Aretz is not planet Earth, but any physical thing in the universe called Aretz. Shamayim is the spiritual dimension. Okay? Now, what will be the definition of physical? So, in Kabbalah sources and also in philosophy, Jewish philosophy, every physical thing, every physical element must exist in a form in a space and in time. Without space and time, no physical entity could exist. Okay? So anything that take place needs space. And up to the time scale, I mean it's obligated to the time scale, is physical. Right? Because of those two limits, any physical entity could not be in two places at the same time. Because the space limits you to be here and not there. Right? Any physical thing could not be in no place at certain time. It must be in a place and in one place. Right? Agree. According to that, if you take a bottle of water, you could pour it to two glasses, to two cups, right? But every drop that will go to the cup will be missing from the bottle, for sure, right? Because it's physical, it could not be in the same place. And this is true for any physical thing. Yeah, for everything, almost, but a flame of a candle. Think about it. Take a candle, lit it. You have a flame? Right. You could see it? Yes. Anything, by the way, another definition, anything physical, anything that you could feel through one or more of your physical sense is physical. Right? So, a flame, according to this, is physical? Of course, you could see it, you could measure it, you could touch it. Not recommended for a long time, but you could, right? So it's there. It's physical. But here's the thing. If you take a candle, a little candle, take another candle, not little, and just make it closer, right? Touch it and separate. You'll get another flame, right? For the new one. Yeah. You have now two flames. The origin of this one is this, right? So according to the laws of nature of the physical, anything that came from the original, that separated from the original, would be missing from the original, right? Yeah. Not in this case, right? The flame is there. Of course, there are reasons for this. You know, it's energy, but we're talking about a parable. So here, according to this, I find an amazing question, amazing answer to the famous question of reincarnation. It's not our topic. I'm not talking about reincarnation. Just will mention it in brief now. You know, according to the Jewish principle, as we said, one of the 13 principles that will be a resurrection of the death at the end of time. Meaning that people who lived in this world and, you know, fulfill their 120 years, separate, the neshama separate the body. At the end of days, the body will be rebuilt and the neshama will go back to it, right? But there is another principle called reincarnation. It's also mentioned in the Kabbalah sources, in the Zohar, in many places, that there is such a thing. It's separate. It's different than what they think about it in the East. It's completely different. But there is a principle like this, that the neshama could be, the soul could be in more than one body during the history. Now the question is, what's going to happen at the end of time, when it will be the time of Tchiyat HaMetim? The neshama will come to what body? To the first, the second, the third, the fourth, to the best one. And what will be with the others? Right? It's a famous question. The answer for this, according to this, is amazing. You know, to ask the question, there is a rule. She'elat chacham chatzit tshuva. If you know how to ask the question, half of the answer is there. Now, when somebody asks me, if there is reincarnation and there is a resurrection of the dead, the neshama, the soul will come to what body, right? I'm telling him, listen. She'elat chacham chatzit tshuva. You have to ask the right question. You have to ask the question in the right way. What is, before you continue, let me ask you a question. You know, Jews, when you ask a question, they answer with a question. Once somebody was asked, why the Jews always, when you ask them a question, they answer with a question? So he said, why not? So, before you continue, let me ask you a question. When you say, if this soul was in this body, then what will be? Let me interrupt you. What do you mean, this soul? What is soul? Could you define a soul? What is soul? What would be the answer? The honest answer? I don't know. I don't know. So you could not assume that you know when you do not know and build on it a question, right? Let me tell you what's the problem over here. What is soul? If soul is like a cube, so if a cube is here, it could not be here. But if the soul is not a cube is a physical thing that has room, space. It depends on the space. So it cannot be in two places in the same time, as we said. But because the soul is not physical, it could be in two places in the same time. You want a proof? Take a candle. Look at the candle, right? And here Shlomo Melech give us a candle as a parable. Take a candle. You take one little flame of one little candle. From it, this could be a source to many candles that you could lit from the same candle. All those flames came from the original. The original is still there. You could take a small flame, lit from it a whole big fire, right? It's come from here for sure, but still the original is there in the same place. More than that, after you lit other candles from the original candle, you could put it down, meaning you could just take it off. The flame will be no flame in the original, and yet the others have their identity by themselves. They are independents, right? So think about it always when you have this question and you got the answer, the best answer for this. Okay? Fine, let's go on. Few more sources before we go to the thing that I want to show you. We have to know that according to Judaism, as we said, because 3 partners in every human being, the meaning of it, when the father and the mother become a partner in a baby, when they start to be partner in this particular baby, from the conception, right? The third partner give its part in the same time. We have to know that. The neshama go to the baby immediately when the process of the pregnancy started. They are partners from the same time. And that's what the Gemara says over here. Neshama nitenet ba'adam mish'at pkida. The soul is placed in the man from the time of the conception. Of course, there are many implications to this, right? According to what you know. You know, the moral Christianity also have a lot of problems because of this. The abortion and all the other stuff. Okay, but you have to know, we were there before Christians, and it's our sources that they're using. Okay, fine. Okay, let's skip those because I have another 2, 3, and go to a very interesting thing. That's what I want to talk about. Life after life. Life after life, meaning after you finish your physical life over here, there is existence after. Okay? Life after life is the name of a book that this guy wrote in 1975. He is a doctor. His name is American doctor. His name is Dr. Raymond Moody, and he wrote a bestseller called Life After Life. Raymond Moody, in brief, was a psychiatric who was also a physician. And in the middle 70s, he was curious because of his work. I mean, to be a psychiatric and a physician, it's a very interesting combination. It means that he got, and you have to remember, we're talking about 40 years ago. More. 40. Yeah, almost 40 years. At the time, the resuscitation system that have today in every ambulance was only in the big hospitals at the time, right? 40 years ago. So he was in his shift in the hospitals, let's say nighttime, people come from different places needing the emergency room. So he was experienced to many people who came with a very serious condition after a heart attack or accidents, many situations. People came to the emergency room and immediately was sent to the operation room. So he gathered them there, and in many cases he was in the operation room with them. because it was psychiatric, after the operation, there is a process of relaxation and rehab, and he should be there with them on the rehab. He interviewed them, and one after another, they told him an amazing story what happened to them when during the operation their heart stopped working, and they performed a resuscitation on them, and they explained things, and he compared all the stories, and he got an amazing information. At the time, it was really new to put it together, and he took it on himself, and he wrote a book called Life After Life. What you see over here is not the book, it's a cover of the video cassette at the time when it was a video cassette, remember, before the discs, of interviews that he made with those kind of people. Okay, now, what did they tell him? And what I want to tell you is that the details that they told him, and he put them together, all those details. I went to our sources, and I find out an amazing things about this kind of information that was so new and so amazing 40 years ago, but it's in our sources thousands of years ago. Okay? And I want to show you now both. We'll start from our sources, and then we'll see the comparison from interviews that he made with people who came back from this kind of thing called near-death experience. Okay? First of all, what they saying. Now I want your help.
Okay. The sensation of leaving the body, being able to see the physical body while floating above it.
Yeah. So the first thing is, and this is very important, be aware of they sing that I see my body, meaning the I is not the body. I see my body from above the body. So they talk about different entity or different thing, different dimension that look on the physical body of the same person from outside when they're floating above. This is the one thing.
A sensation of being drawn into a tunnel or darkness.
You probably heard about this. Let me just explain this. They feel that they are flying in something that they call tunnel. The tunnel itself is dark, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. This is the source of the light at the end of the tunnel, right? האור שבקצה המנהרה, and they're flying toward it. Now, what happened then while they were going in this journey?
Encounters with deceased loved ones or with other beings that may be identified as religious figures.
They explain few things about those encounters. The first thing is that they meeting figures, they translate it, they do not know themselves exactly what's going on, but they describe this as religious figures. But aside from this, they describe, I don't know why it's not mentioned over here. Okay, it will be mentioned. They also meet friends that passed away before them, that come, okay, this is loved one, yes, that comes to greet them or come to escort them to the place that they're going. So two things, friends or relatives, loved ones, and religious figures.
A brilliant light at the end of the tunnel.
Right, the big brilliant light. And they were asked, what do you think is this? We will see the answer later.
A sense of being overwhelmingly peace, well-being, or absolute unconditional love.
This is very interesting. You know, sometimes when Chas v'Shalom we have somebody that passed away, we are feeling sorry for them. We have to know that all of those people who went through this felt so good. They felt peacefully, they felt loved, but of course, we have to remember this, it's not all the information that we will take from the description of in these interviews, talking about the time when, from the separation, the soul from the body, through the tunnel. We do not know anything what happening after they go out of the tunnel, right? So it's too easy too early to say that it's very good to die, right? But at this time, at least in the tunnel, because they feel connected, like a magnet to this light, they feel loved and they're feeling peaceful, okay?
A life review or recall of important events in the past.
This is, according to my opinion, the most amazing thing of everything that I'm going to show you tonight. A life review. Life review of everything that happened to them since they were born to the time that they die. Everything. They see the entire life like a movie, 3D movie will see it. They're describing this. And there are many interesting impacts to this life review on the person who went through this. Okay? This is just the point. Now, they were asked later on, he asked them, and other researchers also, of course, we're talking for almost 40 years since, they were asked later on, after they have this resuscitation, many of them lived normal life for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years even. I don't know, 50, 40, let's say. Yeah. They were asked, all of them, when they went through all of this, all those stages, including this one, a life review. This is important. Is this experience change your life? Did you change your life after than before? And they say yes, in two things. They felt a very strong urge for knowledge. Even if before they never read a book or never was interested in learning, they felt a strong urge to learn. And the other thing is a strong urge to being kind, truly love other people. Why? We will see later. But those are the two things that they said, yeah, in this thing, my character changed. Before that, I was not. Now I really love to learn anything and truly become a better person. Okay. Now let's go to our sources and do the comparison. The first thing is, as you saw before, they describe that they floating above their body and seeing their body from up, right? I want to show you a source in the Gemara, just to know the approximate time. The Gemara was written 1,500 years ago. So those things were written. So what the Gemara says? The Gemara says the following. Amar Rabbi Yinon, it's a Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. כל שאומרים בפני המת יודע עד שיסתם הגולל. When there is a person that just passed away, and let's say before the burial, before even the levaya, before they going with him, it's in the room. He is aware of everything that's talking and happening around him. Okay, so that's what the Gemara says. He knows everything that is in his present until the golel, the top stone, is closed. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara bring another story over there in the next page in the Gemara Masechet Shabbat. Amar lerav Rabbi Shmuel bar Shilat achim be'esped datam kaimna. The most dedicated disciple of Rav was Shmuel bar Shilat, and the custom was before they put the body in the grave, they said a eulogy, and the eulogy was said, especially for a great rabbi, by his disciple. So he told them, listen, when you will say my eulogy, I will be there to hear every word. So be aware of what you're saying, because, sometimes, by the way, when somebody passed away, everybody remember how good person he was. A few minutes before he died, but nobody knows that he died, they could say a lot of not too good things about him. But after he died, everybody remember, yeah, he was good. Sometimes people in the eulogy saying something exaggerates or saying more than he really was, even if he was a good person. But if you say more, you have to know it's not good. It's not good. Why? Because in Shamayim, you could be like this, you weren't. So it's a tviyah, it's a category on the person. So you have to saying the right things. I'm saying that just by the way. Anyway, what's written over here, that the person aware when he is dead, no heartbeat, nothing, And he is aware. What aware is there, right? And here I want to show you parts of interviews that relate to this point that Dr. Moody made with people who are who went through what he called near-death experience. Near-death experience, the definition of it, when you have no heartbeat and maybe some, brain alive, but not, the heart is not working. And then they describe that they find themselves above their body. Okay? Let's see this.
On Long Island,
Here. It happened here, Long Island,
a
right?
70-year-old woman who had been blind since the age of 18 was able to describe in vivid detail what was happening around her as doctors resuscitated her after a heart attack. Not only could she describe what the instrument used looked like, but she could even describe their colors. The most amazing thing about this to me was that most of these instruments weren't even thought of over 50 years ago when she could last see. On top of all this, she was even able to tell the doctor that he was wearing a blue suit when he began the resuscitation.
Wow.
And this is an amazing if you think about it.
Yeah.
This lady was 50 years blind. And she came to the hospital and they made an operation on her or tried to, and she lost her heartbeat, right? So she described herself above her body and she described what was in the room. The things that she described were so accurate with colors, and those machines were not exist. She could not imagine them. They were not there 50 years ago, right? And more than that, she didn't just describe what's going on around. She described what happening, that the doctor, when he came to the room, he was with his, not with a doctor uniform, with a doctor.
Scrubs.
He just put them on during, but in the beginning he was with blue suit. So how, and when they saved her life, of course, if she could talk after, right? They didn't heal her ability to sight. She was blind before, she was blind after, right? So the only time that she could see is when it was, his soul was separated out. So who saw? Not the eyes. It's the soul. This is an amazing point, right? And that's prove it logically from not religion sources, right? That there is such a thing. But this is only the beginning. Let's see more points. Again, another source from Talmud Yerushalmi. Talmud Yerushalmi was written 100 years before the Talmud Bavli. So we spoke about 1,500 years ago. We're talking here about 1,600 years ago. And it was in Eretz Israel. And it's called Talmud Yerushalmi. It was written in Yerushalayim. The Gemara says the following. Kol tlat hayomin, all 3 days after a person passed away. Look at the words. Nafsha taisa al gufa. This is the words of the Gemara. That the soul is floating above the body. Svira di chazra legabe. Mistakenly, the soul think that this situation that it's separated from the body is temporary and it's going to go back. After 3 days, when she saw, when it saw that the face has changed into the face after 3 days, probably the beginning of the decay or something of the physical, then only then the soul realized that it's irreversible. Okay? 2 points. Two points that I want you to remember from this Gemara. First, the Gemara says floating above the body. The other thing is a confusion in the beginning. Not really understanding what's going on. Only later on, then the soul realizes. Look at the story or the interview. Another one of the cases. Look at this.
Another person who was in a horrible accident in which he lost 2 of his limbs remembered lingering over his body on the operating table and feeling sorry for the maimed person on it. Then he realized it was him.
Only then. Meaning in the beginning, first of all, it's above. He's seeing from above. And only later he realized that in the beginning it was a confusion. As the Gemara said, it's not clear what's going on. And then later on, they internalize it. Okay. Now we have an amazing thing. Really amazing thing. Because I want to show you a source from the Kabbalah, from the Zohar. The Zohar says something, and again, it was written many, many years ago. The Zohar, we're talking about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, 1800 years ago. And the Zohar says that after a person finishes his time in this world, and the soul separate the body, God bring this body, get for this body, a spiritual form that looks exactly like the body. But it's not physical, it's spiritual. But the form, the shape of it, is like the body itself. Okay? That's what the Zohar says. Here's the Zohar. מיום שנברא העולם, it's ספר בראשית פרשת לך לך. מיום שנברא העולם, from the time that Hashem created the world, כל הנשמות שעתידות לעמוד בבני האדם, כולם קיימות לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא באותה צורה ממש שהם עתידים להיות בעולם. All the souls that was not yet going down to this world are there with the form of the body that they're gonna get when they will go to this world. כמו כן, like this, לאחר שנפטרים מן העולם, after a person passes away from this world, כל הנשמות עולות, all the souls go up to God, like as we said in the pasuk, והקדוש ברוך הוא מזמן להם צורה אחרת להתלבש בה, כאין הצורה שהיו מלובשים בה בעולם הזה. God will give the souls form, spiritual form, that look exactly like the form of the body that they was in this world when the soul was in the body. So, to be in diet is good. Good shape is good for, not just for this world, okay? Anyway, this is the information that the Zohar brings us. Now look at one of the personal stories that Dr. Emil Moody says about something that happened to him. It's a little bit long, not too long, but it's very interesting.
Okay.
NDEs.
NDEs.
NDEs are initials. NDE, near-death experience. Okay, NDEs.
NDEs often feel fear at this point, which then gives way to perfect understanding of what is going on. They can understand what the doctors and nurses are trying to convey to each other, even though they frequently have no formal medical training. But when they try to talk to them or other people present, no one is able to see or hear them. At this point, they may try to attract the attention of the people present by touching them, but when they do so, the hands go right through the person's arm as though nothing was there.
Because they do not have physical dimension now anymore, right? So what he described over here, that they have a hand, it's not physical, therefore it goes through physical entities. So when they try to attract people, make them pay attention to them, they try to do the instinct, what they used to, tap the person, but it doesn't work. Now he says a personal story that happened to him. Look.
There was described to me by a woman I personally resuscitated. I saw her have a cardiac arrest and immediately started chest massage. She told me later that while I was working on restarting her heart, she was going up above her body and looking down. She was standing behind me trying to tell me to stop, that she was fine where she was. When I didn't hear her, she tried to grab my arm to keep me from inserting a needle in her arm for injecting intravenous fluids. Her hand passed right through my arm, but when she did that, she later claimed that she felt something that was the consistency of very rarefied gelatin that may have seemed to have electrical current running through it.
This is amazing, because she described that she has a hand, but it was not a physical hand. If you compare it to what the Zohar says, and again, the Zohar said that 1800 years ago. I mean, it's written 1800 years ago, and here we find this. For me, this comparison between those sources, our sources, and the thing that they described was really amazing, and that's why I want to share it with you. But there is more. Let's see. The Gemara speaks about here now about the meet with friends and relatives that passed away, right? I want to show you a few sources about this. One of them about very famous person, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, if you heard about the name. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the head of the Sanhedrin at the time of the destruction of the Second Temple. There is a famous story that he pretended that he passed away, and they took him out with the bed out of Yerushalayim because, it was a whole story about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He was the one who meet the empire, and he asked him to save the Sanhedrin and Shoshelet Rabban Gamliel. Anyway, he lived very long life. When he was at his illness bed, close to, in the day that he passed away, his students came to visit him, and the Gemara described the following. It's Gemara in Masechet Berachot, Daf Kuf Chet. כשחלה רבן יוחנן בן זכאי, when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was ill, נכנסו תלמידיו לבקרו. They came to visit him, his students. בשעת פטירתו, so they spoke about many things. At the end, right before he passed away, he said the following. בשעת פטירתו, אמר להם, פנו כלים מפני הטומאה, take all the vessels and all the instruments, all the furnitures from the house, because I'm going to pass away and this will be Tomei, right? So I don't want them to be Tomei. Take them all out. This is the first thing that he said. And the other thing he said, והכינו כיסא לחזקיהו מלך יהודה שבא. And prepare a chair from Chizkiyahu, the king of Yehuda, that came here. Says Rashi, why he came? The Chizkiyahu sheba elai lelavoti, that came to escort me. Now, if you know the history, Chizkiyahu Melech Yehuda lived approximately 600 years before Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai passed away. And he's saying, I'm seeing him, so give him the honor, he coming to escort me. So here we see that there are such a thing that people who passed away coming to greet, to welcome the new person that come to the place.
That it was Chizkiyahu, because Chizkiyahu had addition to his life. Wasn't he sick and
Yeah,
he asked
he got 15 years more, but after that he died.
I know,
So-
I know, but it's interesting that out of all the people
I don't know,
in the past,
yeah. Okay.
He was best friend.
All right, now another source. Zohar. This is again the Zohar in Sefer Bereshit Parashat Vaychi. למדנו, says the Zohar, בשעה שאדם מת, ניתן לו רשות לראות. He got the permission to see. Because when we are alive, we are not seeing many things. We're seeing only certain, we have a selective vision. When a person passed away, he has a permission to see real. And then, he could see, ורואה אצלו, says the Zohar, קרוביו, his relatives, וחבריו, and friends, מעולם האמת, from the other world, the world to come, והוא מכיר אותם. And he recognized them. How? וכולם חקוקים הם בצורתם כמו שהיו בעולם הזה. Even though they do not have physical body, but they, as we said before, the Zohar says, they have a form of the soul that in this way is the ability for him to recognize him. Yeah.
My brother, when he passed away, the last minute, said, I see my mother.
He told you heard that, you heard him saying
I
that.
was saying it.
Yes.
I heard about his father too, yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, so that's what the Zohar says over here. V'im zakayu oto adam, and if this person is lucky, הם שמחים לקראתו ומקדימים לו שלום. You will see them happy for him and greeting him welcome. If he is not that righteous, so they're less happy because he has to go through a certain punishment before he will go join them. Okay, that's what the Zohar says. And again, the Zohar says clearly that you see friends and relatives and friends that come to greet. Another source before we'll see the interview. גמרא במסכת כתובות. בשעה שהצדיק נפטר מן העולם, 3 כיתות של מלאכי השרת יוצאות לקראתו. And here we're talking about angels, not relatives, not friends, angels, spiritual entities that come to welcome him. בשעה שהרשע נפטר מן העולם, 3 כיתות של מלאכי החבלה יוצאות לקראתו. There are different kind of angels, a good ones and the bad ones. Everybody got their friends, you know. But here again, the Gemara says clearly that you meet these people before, on the way there. Okay? Now, if you remember in the tunnel, all these people who are not Jewish necessarily, naturally, right? They explain this. They say, we flying through this tunnel, we meeting religious figures, we meeting relatives, and again, it's here. But another thing is very interesting, and I want to tell you a story, teach you a Gemara about it in brief. The question is, how they greeting them? How they talking to them? They talking, right? They describe. Even in the interviews, they say they're talking. How they talking? They have no body. They have no vocal chords, how they talk. So the answer is, it's telepathic conversation. You think the figure against that's near you read your mind. He is thinking something in this way, right? It's telepathic conversation. There is a very interesting Gemara in Masechet Brachot. The third chapter of Masechet Brachot deals with Kriyat Shema. ממתי קוראים את שמע בשחרית? דינים של קריאת שמע. The third chapter of Masechet Brachot deals, chas v'shalom, with a person that one of his 7 close relatives, which is father, mother, wife, daughter, son, there are 7 relatives that a person should be mourning on when they pass away. So the question is, if chas v'shalom such a thing happened, if they obligated to recite Shema, or they potter, or they are not obligated. And the halacha is that they are not obligated because they could not concentrate on Shema because they are worried about what just happened to them, and it's very strong emotion. So this is the beginning Mishnah over there. Misha meto muta lefanav patur mikriyat Shema. Then the Gemara go to a discussion, and the discussion is this thing: when a person passed away, does he know what's going on in the world that he left behind? Does he concern? Does he relate to his relative? Yes, no. And there is a whole discussion in the Gemara about this. And the Gemara bring proofs from different places, from different sources. And the Gemara bring the following story, an amazing story. Once upon a time was a chassid. Chassid, it's not chassid with shtrimal. Chassid meaning a righteous person that got into a conflict, a fight, with his wife. It happened in the good families, even in the good families. So it was a conflict, it was a fight. And it was very, very strong one. So his wife told him, listen, don't come back home. I'm not letting you in. And it was Erev Rosh Hashanah. It was Erev Rosh Hashanah. So he went to shul, he went to the synagogue to pray, and he have no place to come back for Seudat Rosh Hashanah. His wife threw him out of the house. So he have nothing to do. He didn't have place to go. So he decided to go to outside of the city. And outside of the city at the time was the cemetery. So he said, in the cemetery nobody will bother me. I'll just fall asleep until my wife will come down. So he fell asleep in the cemetery. He tried to fall asleep. All of a sudden, he heard voices. And he heard 2 young girls. Actually, it was 2 young girls that passed away. And they were buried next to each other. So he heard them talking. And one of them said to her friend, today is Rosh Hashanah. Let's go here upstairs. What decision will be made in Shamayim? What Hashem going to decide about what's going to happen the next year? So the friend told her, I could not come with you for technical reasons. So you will go. Whatever you will hear, if it's interesting, come and share with me. Okay. And he's sitting. He's just listening to this. Okay. She went up, she came back, and she told her friend many things. Among the things that this winter, Rosh Hashanah is the end of the summer, so she said this winter, the rain will not come on time. In the beginning will be no rain. The rain will come later, but it will be a good rain, but later on. This person was also a farmer. He has a field, but he was making a living from this. So, what? A Hasidus. Yeah. So, he came back home. Probably, was a Shalom Bayit. He came back home. The winter started. All the other farmers started to, put plants in the ground. He didn't. He delayed it. He said, maybe it's true. Who knows? Okay, sure enough, no rain. So all of the farmers that the things just got lost. He put it later on, and the rain came at the time, and it was very good. He became rich from this. Sometimes it's good to have a fight. You can't reach of it.
Only if you go to the cemetery.
Right. And only if you could hear
Yeah.
the soul speaking. Yeah. Okay. So next year, he told his wife, listen, tonight I'm not coming home. I'm going to a certain place. So he said, why not? If it works last year, let's do it. Try it again. So he went to this cemetery, and sure enough, again, the same conversation. Let's see what's going on in the world. I cannot go, you go, tell me. Okay, she went. She said, and then the friend who stayed asked her, no, what's the degrees upstairs? So she told her, I could not tell you. Why? Because last time I told you, living people heard that, and it's not right. So I'm not telling you. So this is the source that Gemara bring, that they know what's going on. The Gemara, okay, fine. So Ramban, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachmanides, who lived approximately 800 years ago, he has a whole commentaries on the Torah and on the Gemara. On the Gemara, he said, actually, it's not on the Gemara. He made a whole book, Ramban, called Torah Adam, which deals with all the information that we have from all sources, from the Kabbalah sources and the other sources, about what happened to the person when he passed away. So he brings this Gemara in Masechet Brachot Daf Yudchet, and that's what he said about it. Again, 800 years ago, quoting the Ramban. The Ramban says, בשער הגמול, בספר שנקרא תורת האדם, he says the following, וכן הנשמות מספרות זו עם זו. Same thing, the souls could talk to each other, כמו שזכרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, במסכת ברכות בדף י"ח, and you relate to this story, right? ואין הכוונה, he said, this is his words, ואין הכוונה לסיפור שפה וחיתוך לשון. It's not that they were talking with the lips, because they have no vocal cord in lips. So how it works? אך שיש הודעה והשגה לנפשות זו מזו. That they have way to communicate through, not through a physical thing. This is actually telepathy. And this is the word of the Ramban. Now, let's go to Dr. Moody, and I will show you a source, few lines that cover all these three sources that we just saw. If you remember, Chizkiyahu Melech Yehuda that came to escort Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the Gemara that says that Malachei Asharet, Malachei Chabala coming to people if it's tzaddik or not, and the Zohar that says that you see relatives and friends, and the communication is in telepathic way, right? Here's the interviews.
Once through the tunnel, the person usually meets beings of light. These beings aren't composed of ordinary light. They glow with a beautiful and intense luminance that seems to permeate everything and fill the person with love. In this situation, NDEers frequently meet up with friends and relatives who have died. Often they speak of these people being in the same indescribable bodies as theirs. In this state, communication doesn't take place in words as we know them, but in telepathic, non-verbal ways that result in immediate understanding.
Bingo! All of the points are here. And again, we're talking about people from different backgrounds, most of them non-Jewish, and all of them describe the same thing. And this is amazing, from a research point of view.
After meeting several beings in light, the NDEer usually meets a supreme being of light. Whoever he is, the being radiates total love and understanding, so much so that most people want to be with it forever. But they can't. At this point, they are told, usually by a being of light, that they have to return to their earthly body. But first, it's his job to take them on a life review.
Yeah, and this description is very interesting because this is the light at the end of the tunnel. This light is bright, but not, make you blind. It's radiate understanding, love. And be aware of what they said. Because they feel so connected, they want to be part of it. They want to join it. Now, the Zohar says about this. Oh, I don't have it? Yeah, here it is. The Zohar says about this thing, the strong light, the Zohar says the following, בזמן ההוא, כשמגיעה השעה שתהיה נפרדת הנפש מן הגוף, at the time when it's the time for the soul to separate the body, אין הנפש יוצאת מן הגוף עד שתתגלה עליו השכינה. The way it occurred is when he got revealed to the divine presence. והנפש מתוך שמחת וחביבות השכינה יוצאת כנגדה מן הגוף. Because the source of the neshama is God, the neshama has a desire to rejoin the source. That's what the Zohar describes how it's happening. So if you compare it to what they say over there, they say the same thing because they want to join this light, right? But here comes the last thing that it's that all of those people who came back, obviously it wasn't their time, right? They told them, listen, you cannot continue the journey, you have to go back. But before you go back, let me show you something. And he showed them their life until then. Now, we have to know, not every person who went through NDE, near-death experience, has this. Only when it's deep near-death experience. Then you see also the life review. The life review, as I said before, is the most amazing thing. Why? Let's see. Let's see what they describe, what they really see.
When the life review occurs, there are no more physical surroundings. In their place is a full-color, three-dimensional panoramic review of every single thing the NDERs have done in their lives. This usually takes place in a third-person perspective and doesn't occur in time as we know it. The closest description I've heard of it is that a person's whole life is there at once. In this situation, you will not only see every action that you have ever done, but you also perceive immediately the effects of every single one of your actions upon the people in your life.
What amazing in this, we all, in a way, love nostalgia. How do you say that? Nostalgia, right? We love this. But what we love to remember? The good things, right? Here it says that you're going to see your entire life. Remember every single thing. And not just the things, but also the impact that those actions was on the people around you. Let's see in what way, to what extent. So, for instance,
if I'm seeing myself doing an unloving act, then immediately I am in the consciousness of the person that I did the act to, so I feel their sadness, hurt, and regret. On the other hand, if I do loving act to someone, then I am immediately in their place and I can feel kind and happy feelings. Through all of this, the being is with those people, asking them what good they have done with their lives. He helps them through the review and helps them put all the events of their life in perspective.
So two things mentioned over here. First, you see the implications and you feel the other person feeling. Not just what did you do. Every single thing from the beginning. In a way, we are like designing in each one of our actions the movie of our life. This is the important thing, and it comes not from religion sources, right? Those people said. We tend to not, think it's too important what we did. So we did. So we have to know that everything that you do, and the Zohar says it's not just action. It's action, speech, and thought has an impact. And it's not erasing. And it's there. And according to this, after understanding that this is true, many people should think before they do anything. Because you just writing your life movie. And you're going to see it at the time. So this is one thing. The other thing, and for some people it will be very depressing, right? So the emphasis over there is on the good things. I'll tell you why, but we have to know. You're going to see everything, but the emphasis will be in the good things. Why? Because the bad things are not there to exist. It's there in order to be eliminated. Of course, you have to eliminate them because you created them. But after you eliminate them, it's not easy. But after it's done, it's not there anymore. The only thing that will stay there forever in your record is the good things. So it doesn't matter how many not too good things you did in your life. Try to do as many good as you can, because this gonna be what left from us forever. The good things. About the bad things, we're gonna pay to the last penny. But after that, it will be non-exist. But the good things will exist forever. Now,
all the people who go through this come away believing that the most important thing in their life is love. For most of them, the second most important thing in life is knowledge. As they see life scenes in which they are learning things, the beings point out that one of the things they can take with them at death is knowledge. The other is love.
and here's, again, something very deep. We have to understand. To explain what I just mentioned before, that the good things stayed with us forever. The bad things are temporary. Of course, when it's there, you have to eliminate them. And it's hard. It's hard to eliminate them. But after that, it will not exist. The only things that you could have with you forever, not even the angel of death could take it from you, is your knowledge and your love. Let me explain this a little bit from the Jewish philosophical point of view. Knowledge comes from the soul, not from the body. The body is not interested in knowing anything. The body is lazy, he wants to eat, to have good time, fun, and that's it. To learn, the curiosity to learn, and actually this belongs to the source that we skipped before, about what happened in the baby when he is in the womb. It's mentioned that he's learning the entire information about the world. He's knowing everything. When he comes to this world, he got a slap, and this is the scar from the slap from the angel, and he forgot everything. Forgot doesn't mean that the knowledge erased. It just go to the subconscious in order for, the reason is, for you to regain it by working hard on it. And this is actually the source of curiosity. Why are we so curious? We are. And this curiosity urge is so not normal. Because of curiosity, we want to know. But we want to know everything. And most of all, we want to know the things that you could not know. The future and the hidden. Why do you have an urge to know the future? It's not there. It's not there yet. Be normal, right? So this curiosity doesn't have any limits, not of time, not of space. Time and space are the limits of the physical. The knowledge, the real knowledge, is above physical. Therefore, there is an urge to know the future the same way to know the present or the past, right? So, when the angel makes the baby forget, is only in order that the baby itself will work on it in order to know it. And the more you work on it, this is your knowledge. It's your knowledge forever. Therefore, they felt an urge to learn. Of course, most of them are not Jewish, and they do not know what to know. So, they just learn everything. We know what's the real thing to know. The Torah. Why? Because Hashem created the world based on the Torah. So if you know the Torah, you know everything. If you know biology of certain species or in Africa, you know this. It's nice knowledge, but it's very a small dot in the big information. If you know the Torah, you know everything, right? So the other thing is love. Love, what they called love, we called in Judaism, in Jewish philosophy, we called it chesed. Chesed is to give unconditionally, without any intention to get back. The body never could do such a thing. Never. The body will give, if it will give, only in order to get. Only the soul could give without anticipation to get. When you give in order to get, you're not a giver. You are a sophisticated taker. You do business, But the bottom line is, if I'm not get, I'm not gonna give. In Hebrew Israeli, we have a word for this: friar. I will not be a friar. I'm not giving without getting. That's so selfish. So selfish. It's come from the body. The body is a poor. The difference between the body and the soul is the difference between the rich and the poor. The body always wants to get because it's always missing. So I will give if I'll get. A person who is really able to give without anticipation to get is rich. I do not need. Take. Be happy. I don't need back. Just take. So all those two things, the knowledge and the true love, which is chesed, are possessions of the soul. And when the soul separates the body, everything that belongs to the body is irrelevant anymore. Only the things that belongs to the soul are relevant. David HaMelech said in Tehillim, in Sefer Tehillim, in Psalms, he says a famous thing. He says the following: Al tira ki ya'asher ish ki yirbe kvod beito. Don't get impressed if you see somebody that is very rich. He has a lot. He is famous. Why? כי לא במותו ייקח הכל, לא ירד אחריו כבודו. When he is dying, when he passed away, you will not gonna take to him to the grave nothing from everything that he had. You know, the villa, the bank account, the fancy car, all of this, 1 second after a person passed away, are not relevant whatsoever. When you have a body, you need a nice house. You need money in order to, get the body for it. But what do you need it for now? Nothing. So when from the body, from the person, stayed only the soul, only the possession of the souls are matter. Have any value. The other doesn't have any value. And that's what they said. And therefore, those people who went through this, later on, they changed their priorities. And the priority become, I want to know as much as I can, and I want to be kind. I want to be a good person who really, truly give, not take. Okay, we at the end. Let's see another thing. What our sources says. You see, what we saw over here, and what the people said about what they saw. Right? They saw everything that happened. It's not just happened. You did it, for good or not. You did it. This is you. In our sources, I want to show you two sources, and that will be the end of this class. One in the Gemara, Gemara Masechet Ta'anit. בשעת פטירתו של אדם לבית עולמו, כל מעשיו נפרטים לפניו. Again, all the details, the actions you see. ואומרים לו, כך וכך עשית ביום פלוני ביום פלוני. They will show him the video. You will see it. He could not deny it. It's you did it at certain day, at certain place. Right? והוא אומר הן, and he would admit. He could not but admit. ואומרים לו חתום. You have to sign it. וחותם. שנאמר ביד כל אדם יחתום. It's a pasuk in Yov. He's signed it. ולא עוד אלא שמצדיק עליו את הדין. He said, you know what? You're right. I did it. I understand the implications. And the implications come from the action. So he does not have any complaints. ואומר להם, יפה דמתוני. לקיים מה שנאמר למען תצדק בדובריך. The Zohar says the same thing, he just add another thing. The Zohar in פרשת לך לך, בואו ראה, ביום שנשלמו ימיו של אדם לצאת מן העולם. At the time when a person complete his days in this world, אז ניתן רשות לאדם לראות מה שלא היה יכול לראות בעת ששלט הגוף. Then he got the permission to see more than he has when he had a body. הוא משיג דבר על בוריו, and he see things clearly. ואז עומדים עליו 3 שליחים וחושבים ימיו וחטאיו, and 3 messengers send it to him and calculate his days and everything that he did, the good things and the bad things, וכל מה שעשה בעולם הזה, everything that he did in this world, והוא מודה על הכל בפיו, and he admits everything that it's true, it's me, I did it, ואחר כך חותם עליו בידו, and he has to sign it. ובידו כולם חתומים לדון אותם באותו עולם, and he has to sign each one of the details for the judgment of the world to come, על ראשונים ועל אחרונים, the earliest and the latest, על חדשים ועל ישנים, the old ones and the new ones, אף אחד מהם אינו נשכח. None is just missing. Everything is there. So, in a way, as I said before, this is the most amazing thing. Why? Because we have information about this from two sources. You know, some people, if you tell them, the Torah says, the Rabbanim says, they say, okay, the Rav says. I'm not getting impressed. But if you tell them, the doctor says, they say, whoa, the doctor, it's scientific. In this case, the doctor says, and the Torah says, the same thing, right? There is such a thing. There is such a thing. Life are not ending when the body separates the soul. The body goes temporarily until the resurrection of the dead at the Tchilat HaMetim for a certain place. But the neshama is there with everything that you did in the world, for good and for not good. Everything is there. So the meaning of what to do is so important. Each one of us have to think about it, because it's not something, you know, nobody sees, nobody knows, everybody will forget. No, it's not like this. You're just writing the movie of your life, right? And in a way, it's nice, and the other way, it's depressing, because many people will say, wow, everything that I did is there. Can we edit it? And you know what? I'm here for tell you the yes, that you could edit.
Too late.
No, it could be edited. Okay? If you remember, I show you the pasuk, the verse in Kohelet, in Mishle. Ner Hashem nishmat adam. It's like a candle, right? The neshama is like a candle. The difference between a candle, as Shlomo HaMelech gives us as a parable, that the candle could be, the flame of the candle, is not limited by time and space. When it's not limited by time and space, it means that it could go back on time and fix things that happened in the past. Anything that's limited by time, you know, the time scale actually is a death trap of us.
This is a Gilgul.
No, I'm talking about in the same life, the same lifetime.
Oh.
If you realize today, not to relate to Torah, to Hashem, to how do you supposed to behave, if you realize that you made a mistake, let's say in your business, or in your relationships with friends, with relatives, you made a mistake. You did something wrong, you made a mistake. What you could do is to change your ways, change your philosophy. But you could change it from now on. You could never change the past. The past is there, right? The past is there, it's there, you cannot, no reverse on time. No such a thing. You could fix from now on. This is the limit of physical. So if we were only physical, you could say, you know what happened, let's change from now on. Because we are a combination of physical and spiritual, and because the spiritual by itself is not limited by time, for the spiritual, going back is the same way to going forward. It's not limited by time. And here is the potential of fixing the past. Fixing the past. Because as long as the neshama is inside the body, you could change even the most terrible things that any person could think of that they did in the past. It could be changed if the neshama will realize it and really regret it. This is actually the thing called tshuva. Tshuva is lashuv, to return, to go back to the place when the mistake or not the mistake happened, the not good thing happened, and you want to get it off your record. You could do it. Let me just tell you in brief a small story. That will be the end of the lecture. The story says the following, that many years ago, in a Jewish neighborhood, I'm talking about 200 years ago, a Jewish city, very isolated one, was a big Rav. That was the Rav of the community. It was a small community, a few hundred people, but they have a Rav. And this Rav was an old, very smart, in the worldly smart, and Torah, right? And he was so dedicated to his community. Everybody in the community a little kid or adult knows that if they have any problem, they could advise with the Rav or get a very smart attitude and ideal advice. So this Rav, every day, the people were working. Every day they're coming from the field, from the work. Before they go home, it was a mincha arvit before sunset, and it was a very short shiur of 20 minutes that he gives them in order that everybody will feel that even if they're working all day, they're learning some, they feel some spiritual knowledge also. They learn some Torah. After they finish the shiur, everybody goes home. The Rav stayed in the synagogue, in the shul, and learned for himself for many hours. Usually around 1 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock, it was closing the synagogue and going back home. So at the time was no electricity, so it was a flame, a candle or whatever that was making the light. One night, after this long time that he was learning in the shul, the Rav, he closed the synagogue, he went back home. On the way home, he saw that there is a light in one of the houses, and he knows the owner of the house. It was the shoemaker of the community, one of his member of the community, and he saw a light over there, a candle inside. So the window was not too close, so he looked at it, he saw him fixing shoes in the middle of the night, 1 o'clock. So he decided to knock on the door. He knocked on the door. He opened the door and said, "Oh, what the honor? Why the Rav is visiting me now?" So he answered with a question: "What are you doing up now? Fixing shoes in the middle of the night? Go to sleep." So he made a sign and say, "You know me. Times become more and more difficult. I have a lot of debts. I could not pay them off. So I decided not to finish at certain way, at certain time, the hours of my working. When it's become dark, I light a candle, and as long as the candle is going, I'm working. So today I had a good candle, so it went on until 1. So the Rav blessed him that he will see better days, and things will be soon good. And he wished them good night, and he went to his house. All the way back to his house, the Rav was saying to himself the following. Before I tell you, I want to show you a picture. Do you know the Wax Museum? You know the Wax Museum, right? There is such a thing, famous figures made out of wax. I want to show you from this museum picture of somebody that you know very, very well. But the picture is worth more than 1,000 words. This is the picture. You know this person? No? This person is each one of us. Yeah. When a baby was born, he's like a shiny candle. The body of the candle is the body. Remember, the soul is the flame. And the more time passed, the candle becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. It's melting, right? So this Rav, when he went home, he's saying to himself, after hearing it from the shoemaker, Kol od haner dolek, efshar letaken. As long as the flame is still burning, you could fix. So this is it. You could edit. As long as the flame is there, we could fix it. We could fix it. And when we fix it in the right way, there are ways to do it. There is halacha how to do it. It will not be in your record anymore. So actually, basically, this is the thing that I thought we could share tonight. And as I said in the beginning, it's more than it's curious, it's important. Because it makes you think about yourself, about life, about what... And again, we have the sources from both ends, from the Torah and from modern or science researchers. And the difference for me is that the Torah is truth. The science is on the way to the truth. Because the science of today is not the science of yesterday. Therefore, it's not the science of tomorrow. But what they know already, when you compare it to the reliable sources of what we got from the creator of the universe, make it serious. Make it serious. Okay,
I have
so,
a question.
yeah.
When you say that the neshama goes around the body for 3 days after...
Not go around. It's wondering what's happening, yeah?
But in the Jewish law, they bury the dead like the same day. So
They bury
let's
the body.
say,
Even when it's in the grave.
how can he get out if it's not his time? And
Why?
I didn't get it maybe.
No, over there it's not talking about somebody who returned. Over there we're talking about somebody who dead. Dead completely, and they
So
buried
the
him.
3 days
So
it's
3
not-
days the soul do not really realize what's going on. That's
I
what
see, but it's not like if it kind of like
No, no.
continue or
No,
come
no.
back.
No. Here we're talking about complete dead, not new dead. Okay, this is it. Thank you very much.